Imagine reaching the age of 65 with nothing left but a secret recipe and a dream. Most people would give up. But one man, Harland David Sanders, turned failure into fire. He did not retire. He reinvented himself. Now think about this. KFC is not just a fast food brand. It is a global empire with more than 25,000 restaurants in over 145 countries. Every minute, millions of people taste the same recipe that began in a small gas station kitchen in Corbin, Kentucky. But how did one man, once broke and hopeless, create a fried chicken legacy that outlived him? The truth is darker and more surprising than you might expect. Colonel Sanders did not just sell chicken, he sold trust, persistence, and belief in something greater than success. He built his... The story of Colonel Harland Sanders does not begin with success. It begins with silence, the kind that follows loss. At only 6 years old, he lost his father. The laughter in his home faded into long nights of hunger and survival. By 12, he had left school, trading books for hard labor on farms. The world did not hand him a future, he had to carve one with his bare hands. But life seemed determined to break him. He worked as a streetcar conductor, a farmhand, a railroad fireman, even a salesman. Each time he thought he had found stability, it slipped away. He was fired again and again, not because he lacked effort, but because fate seemed to test his will. Yet through every rejection, one thing stayed the same: his belief that failure could not define him. Soft pause. Background. Faint crackle of fire. A whistle of an old train passing, he once said. I made a resolve that no man would ever ruin my life but me. Those words were not just pride, they were pain turned into power. He had no money, no college degree, and no connections. What he did have was trust, in his recipe, in hard work, and in people. That trust would one day become the flavor the whole world recognized. But here is something few people know. Before his chicken ever reached fame, Sanders tried over 1,000 business ideas, from running a ferry boat to selling insurance. Each failure built a layer of wisdom. Each rejection sharpened his resilience. So ask yourself, could you keep fighting after losing everything that matters? Colonel Sanders did. And that unbreakable spirit became the real secret ingredient behind Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now imagine this. When the world turned its back on him, he turned his scars into strategy. What he did next will completely change how you see success. Tell us in the comments, do you believe struggle is a curse or a blessing in disguise? The year was 1930. The world was collapsing under the Great Depression. Jobs vanished, families struggled, and dreams were buried under the weight of hunger and uncertainty. But in a small weathered gas station on US Route 25 in Corbin, Kentucky, one man decided to fight back with flavor. Colonel Harland Sanders had lost everything: his jobs, his businesses, and nearly his will to continue. But inside that gas station, he began cooking fried chicken for travelers passing by. There was no restaurant sign, no polished kitchen, just the sound of sizzling oil and the scent of ambition rising through the cold Kentucky air. Soft pause. A faint crackling of oil close-up of Sanders dusting chicken and flour. He experimented for years, blending herbs and spices by instinct, until one night, after countless failures, he discovered the balance. 11 herbs and spices, a secret mix that turned simple chicken into something unforgettable. Customers began to talk. Cars started lining up outside his humble gas station. And slowly, without knowing it, Sanders had created a recipe that would one day conquer the world. But here is something few people know: that famous secret recipe was never written down in the beginning. Sanders guarded it in his memory, trusting only himself. He once said, "The secret is not just in the spices. It is in the care you give to the people you serve." That line built the foundation of trust that still defines KFC today. Just when everything seemed to be changing, fate struck again. A new highway bypassed Corbin, leaving Sanders' restaurant abandoned overnight. It was over, or so everyone thought. But what he did next would rewrite his story and transform defeat into destiny? Tell us in the comments, do you believe success begins at your lowest moment? Would you like me to move to the next cinematic segment, the breakdown to breakthrough? when rejection became his weapon with the same suspenseful and emotional tone? The turning point, the big idea tone, cinematic, emotional, and suspenseful, written like a true crime-style business documentary. The year was 1930. The Great Depression had swallowed America. Banks were failing, families were starving, and hope was fading fast. But in a small gas station at Corbin, Kentucky, one man refused to surrender. Harland Sanders, tired, broke, and nearly forgotten, decided to fight back in the only way he knew, with food. Inside that dusty service station, he set up a small stove, a few iron pans, and a dream. He cooked chicken for travelers who stopped for fuel, not because he wanted profit, but because he believed in serving people something that made them feel cared for. Customers came for gas but stayed for the taste. The aroma of his fried chicken drifted through the Kentucky air like a promise. Soft background crackle, sound of oil sizzling, faint footsteps of travelers. He spent years experimenting, testing dozens of spice combinations until one night he found it, the perfect balance of 11 herbs and spices. A secret so simple, yet so powerful, it turned ordinary chicken into a story. People began lining up outside his gas station. Strangers turned into regulars, and regulars became believers. But here is a detail most people never heard in the early days. Sanders personally mixed every batch of seasoning by hand. He trusted no one with the formula. That trust in himself became the backbone of a brand built on authenticity and care. Yet, just when success seemed certain, tragedy returned. A new highway opened, cutting off traffic to Corbin. The crowds vanished. His restaurant emptied overnight. Everything he built crumbled again. But this was not the end. It was the moment before everything changed. Because what Sanders did next would turn rejection into revolution. What do you think? Can a single loss create a global empire? Share your thoughts below. The rise, global expansion of KFC all began in a small gas station kitchen in Corbin, Kentucky. The aroma of 11 secret herbs and spices drifted through the air, pulling strangers off the highway. But what started as a single recipe soon ignited one of the most powerful empires in food history. The first KFC franchise opened in Salt Lake City, and within months, the world could not stop talking about it. People were not just buying fried chicken. They were buying trust in a man's legacy. As word spread, Colonel Sanders became a symbol of perseverance. His white suit and warm smile represented more than success. They represented belief, the idea that age and failure could never end a dream. By the 1960s, KFC was exploding across America. Yet in 1964, Sanders shocked the world. He sold KFC for $2 million. Still, he refused to walk away. He stayed as the face of the brand, ensuring his recipe and values would never be forgotten. But here is something most people do not know. KFC's real global rise started after that sale. In the 1970s and 1980s, it reached countries no one imagined would ever eat fried chicken. Japan, China, India, all embraced Sanders like family. Today, KFC operates in more than 150 nations. And its latest 2025 expansion includes AI-driven smart kitchens in Singapore and Dubai. The brand is testing drone deliveries and sustainable oil recycling systems that could change the entire fast food industry. Every empire has a storm before its rise. Sanders faced rejection, poverty, and countless no's. But his story teaches one truth: when passion becomes trust, even a secret recipe can conquer the world. What do you think truly made KFC unstoppable? The flavor or the man behind it? Share your theory below. Remember the man who started at 65? The one who carried his recipe in a beaten briefcase and a dream in his heart. He did not just build a restaurant, he built a revolution that redefined fast food forever. Colonel Harland Sanders proved something most people forget: success does not have an age limit, and faith is more powerful than failure. But here is something that will surprise you. In 2025, KFC quietly launched an initiative that connects directly to Sanders' original dream: a legacy kitchen program, where retired chefs across the world are invited to share recipes inspired by their cultures. The goal? to prove that no dream is ever too late, and every flavor carries a story. It is KFC's way of keeping the Colonel's trust alive, the belief that people, not products, build empires. Close your eyes for a second and imagine it. A man who once lived in his car, rejected more than 1,000 times, now has his face on more than 25,000 restaurants worldwide. That is not just business growth. That is human persistence carved into history. And maybe that is the real moral here. One idea, no matter how small, can shake the world if it carries honesty and trust. Dreams do not expire. They only wait for courage to arrive. Now, think for a moment. What if Colonel Sanders had given up at 64? Would the world ever know the taste that became a symbol of resilience? If this story inspired you, share your thoughts below. Which brand's journey do you want to see next? Your suggestion might just become our next deep dive story.